All right, Tyler Orton for Business in Vancouver is back with us. Good morning, Tyler. How are you?
Doing quite well, thanks, Steve.
Very busy morning, lots of stuff in the business world. What are you starting with?
Tech, this sector is doing quite well. This is according to a report from BC Statistics. They're looking at it on an annual basis, and the latest numbers that they calculated, they're going back to 2013, but it was still a very strong year. The big deal that they're talking about is that despite, how much we talk about it, Steve, I'm always on talking about one tech company or another that's doing really well. But if you look at our North American neighbors, BC still has a long way to go. Now, if we pull up the numbers, I'll show you just how well the sector's performing. GDP, we're seeing growth of 2.2%. This is back in 2013. And we've seen about 700 businesses were added that year as well. So that's a growth of 8.1%. And we've seen lots of jobs added as well. That grew by 1.4%. But here's the key here. Now, the proportion of our GDP that comes from the tech sector, it's 6.5%. So it's outpacing, say, lumber, oil and gas and all that. But if you go to Quebec, which is a jurisdiction in Canada with the highest percentage of its GDP coming from the high-tech sector, it's only at 9.3%. Now, if we take a look at the next set of numbers, I'll show you why this is such a big deal. Go down to Washington, go down to Oregon, and they have 21 to 23% of their GDP coming from the high-tech sector. Now, what BC Stats determines that the big difference between these Canadian jurisdictions and these U.S. jurisdictions is the manufacturing center. Now, if we take a look at what the weekly wages are here in British Columbia, it's $1,080 per week on average for a high-tech manufacturing job. In British Columbia versus $1,120 for just the overall total in manufacturing, the weekly average I'm talking about. So it's very unique in that we're actually having high-tech workers in manufacturing making fewer dollars than just overall workers that aren't necessarily in this particular sector of the economy. So what we're saying here with regards to the report is that BC's manufacturing sector still has to develop further until it's going to be able to catch up to its North American neighbors. But with Washington, Oregon, you can see how far they are ahead of us. And a lot of it is because they have the infrastructure there. For example, Oregon, they have a big Intel manufacturing plant. But BC is making headway. There is a Chinese company, F Pacific Optical. They're actually moving manufacturing operations from China over to Surrey because it just makes more economic sense for them to do that. So there's a lot of potential for manufacturing growth in the high-tech sector right here in British Columbia.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you very much for that, Tyler. And we'll be back in an hour to talk about Greece. So another interesting story this morning.